gentlemen work out your backgrounds, I'm going to quickly make a small announcement. My name is Alexis Haig. I'm the Director of Administration for the European Business University of Luxembourg. And just for all our viewers, and we're up to almost 100 at this point, we just wanted to articulate that we have a certificate impact program that we are running through our website connect.ebu.lu. We're offering certificates of business and working with partners all around the world to ensure that people who are challenged in terms of economics or geographical location can actually access business certificates from EBU. In addition, we've just created an impact degree program under scholarship, which starts in September, which offers both bachelor and master level degree programs at a significantly reduced scholarship price. If you are interested in joining EBU on these two programs or our other degree programs, there's two websites that I have placed in the chat room for you to locate information. One is connect.ebu.lu and the other one is ebu.lu, which is our normal website. Okay, thank you everyone. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Alexis. So let's get started here. Well, this is our third roundtable, and I think we need to just backtrack a little bit and pick up from where we left off. But before we move forward, I think the most important thing for us to do is introduce ourselves, have a little round of introductions. So if I may ask Valentino first to introduce yourself and what you do and what is it that brings you here, please.
Hey, I'm Valentino. I'm in crypto for so long, I don't even remember. It's been probably a decade plus now. So I started as a trader in crypto, and then I built the first regulated central exchange in the Netherlands that got the licenses from the Dutch Central Bank for exchanging fiat to crypto and crypto to fiat, as well as the custody license. You know, stepped out of that company, still a shareholder, but that's doing fantastic. It's turning into a crypto bank now in the Netherlands. Then I embarked on building a DeFi protocol. So I built a copy trading protocol that's actually just going live. Like we just had the beta release. Everything's working, thank God. That was a lot of work, and the main concerns were something where the smart contract logic wouldn't work, but it's all good. So yeah, I've been building in DeFi. I've created the centralized exchange of the policies and the licensing. So I was on a regulated side, and now building DeFi systems, running a team of 24 people or so. So that's what I do my day.
Thank you very much, Florian.
Hey guys, hi everyone, thanks for being here. So I'm Florian. I've been into crypto not as long as Valentino, but almost exactly 5 years now that I've been into crypto. Again, same thing, started as investor, as trader with big caps, and then started to find my way up to smaller caps, which led to me creating NodeSeeds last year, a bit more than 1 year ago, which is a crypto venture capital tokenized, where the value of our token is backed by our portfolio, because we're using some percent of our profits to buy back and burn our token. And more recently, I've been building with my whole 15-man team a play-to-earn game called Eraspheres on Solana. And it is officially the first incubated project by NodeSeeds, so it's kind of linked together. And yeah, so I have these two things on my plate. So obviously I'm not alone. We are plenty of people working together. And I've been a degen for the past 2 years. I like to jump on new listings, so not so much now. I don't have much time, but I started on Ethereum, and then you find your way to other chains, and I guess we'll talk about it. But yeah, degen is my my way to live.
Sounds interesting. Sounds like a good way to live. I know Valentino's living large, so we'll talk about that later. Well, my name is Dr. Mully. I'm the academic dean of the European Business University. But I'll just mention that I have been very active in the crypto space, and I'll rather say the blockchain space as opposed to crypto, the fundamentals of it all. And in this respect, I've been actively involved lecturing in this domain. But my first encounter, I guess I go back to 2013, about 9 years, when everything was really, really incredibly cheap and unknown. I remember my first transaction, I think I bought Ethereum at 25 or something ridiculous like that. And as soon as it went to 500, I sold it immediately because I thought it was just incredible, impossible. But I'm still in this space. So I actively lecture in this area. I lecture at the Graduate Center in Bremen University in applied blockchain technologies. I also lecture at the European Business University here in applied blockchain technology. But more importantly, what brings me into this space is the mere aspect that this is a game changer. And I find it very interesting just to be here because I am originally from Kenya and I see what is going on in terms of this space. Well, let's jump right into it, gentlemen. And in the future, I think we need to make sure that we have more female representation, and that is going to be the case. So let me just say that the European Business University is very, very engaged in ensuring that we have an affordable program, an accessible program, but also an equitable program. And I think that's just something that needs to be mentioned. We are, as a university, partnered with a women-only organization called Azelia, who conduct blockchain-based activities. So this is very interesting, and hopefully we'll be able to bring them on board with us, gentlemen. So that will be something to look forward to. So let me quickly jump into the topics so that you're aware. We're going to cover certain areas, and I just want to highlight what we'll be looking at today. We would like to discuss the third generation blockchain and the proof of stake protocol. This is something we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at initial stake pool offerings, a new way in which funds are being raised for crypto-related projects. We're also going to dabble into P2P trading or peer-to-peer transactions, especially because this is a domain that has been very interestingly adopted by developing countries across the world. What is also important, of course, is the metaverse and the virtual worlds. We want to have a quick discussion on that. But I also think we need to, at the same time, look at the concept of non-fungible tokens. So we're going to ask our panel here to give their thoughts on this. And last but not least, a topic we touched on last time, I think we need to revisit this because of the dynamic change that we've seen or movement, and this is on central bank digital currencies. So let's quickly, before we get into this, make some clear disclosures. I know you already did make a disclosure there, Florian, but I just want to make everybody clear that it is important to state what your stake is. What is it that because we want to make sure that all biases are clearly translated here. So what are disclosures, please, Valentino? We'll start off with you.
This is not investment advice. Is that what you mean?
Just want to make sure that everybody's clear that it's not investment advice, and this is where your bias lies because you hold.
Oh, I hold a lot. I hold Bitcoin, Ethereum, Mina, Polkadot. I mean, I have a variety. I have a lot of stuff. I have a portfolio of like, let's say 15 assets or so. That's probably my majority. Elrond, Veracity. Yeah.
Okay, what do you top heavy in? Let's say.
Oh, my top heavy always Bitcoin, Ethereum. That's the two that you said. If you so the way that I would do it is that I would take more risk on the lower alts, and when they start becoming very profitable, to cycle into Bitcoin and Ethereum, stabilize the earnings, if you will. Yeah, get rid of, they're less volatile.
Thank you, Florian. Your disclosure.
Yeah, so obviously, since we're building our game on Solana, I have a big bias towards Solana, so just keep that in mind during our discussion. Otherwise, yeah, I hold a lot of Ethereum, so that's for sure. And every project, because NodeSeeds invest in project, right? So every project that you can find on our website called nodeseeds.com/investments, well, I'm biased, right? Because we invested in them, which means I personally probably invested in them too. And there are more than, actually, we don't have the full list on the website, but you can check in our reports if needed. So yeah, I'm going to be quite biased towards Solana and more small scale project, and obviously Ethereum is my biggest holding, and of course NDS tokens, but that goes without saying.
Okay, thank you. And I will disclose that I am biased towards Cardano, and primarily because we are, as a university, engaged with them actively. We run Plutus Haskell programs. We engage very actively through them in marketing our courses. And I personally do hold a significant portion of this token. I'm also vested, but not as heavily, in IOTA. I still have Monero, XRM, that is, Neo, Zcash, some Dash, and of course, the grandfather, Bitcoin. All right, so with that out of the way, and everybody knows what our biases are, let's quickly jump into it. And I just want to touch on, I think, the first topic that I had mentioned, which is third generation blockchain-based, I guess, proof of stake protocols. Well, I guess the question I'd like to put out there is, will third generation cryptos replace the predecessors? I mean, where are we going here with the third generation? And perhaps maybe we can start off with what is the third generation, especially when it comes to scaling, and what exactly, if you would define for our audience, is proof of stake versus proof of work? Valentino.
So proof of work is obviously letting the processing power of the miners or the computers crack the code, and having like actual hardware doing that. Proof of stake is, you stake your capital or your tokens, you put them on chain essentially, and you validate blocks that way, which is less processing power intensive, and it's a more in energy friendly kind of thing. The way that they're scaling it currently is you have layer 1, layer 2, then you have just different side chains or parachains, right? Depending on which ecosystem, like Polkadot's doing parachains. But that's more for interoperability, actually. But yeah, I don't know. There's you have Avalanche coming up. You have like Near. You have all these other layer 1s, and they're there to scale essentially and to make it all faster. But they all run into the same problem as Ethereum later on. The more usage there is, the slower they get, and the more expensive they get. They cannot sustain the cheap fees and the fast transactions most of the time. They do clog. So, I mean, Ethereum is going towards proof of stake. They were going to do it in summer. It's now autumn or something, so slightly delayed. But I think that that's what's going to happen. They're going to, run it on ETH, and they're going to have some scaling layers like Scale, for example, on Ethereum. Yeah, or do you just do it interoperability wise? You have multi-chain ecosystem with certain bridges, and you use certain blockchains for certain purposes, and you can always bridge a token. That's more and more the things that's happening. So yeah, you're essentially scaling via all the entire ecosystem and putting it all together, right? And using various chains for different purposes. So that's how I see it unfolding in a short answer.
Absolutely. Thank you. Florian, your thoughts? I mean, I know you're heavily vested in Ethereum. You said you have a bias, but what about these gas fees? And what about
I think it's important that we remember that Ethereum has scaled already, even if it's minimized, and some people try to minimize it. And obviously I'm biased, but it has scaled. Remember the EIP protocol 1559, the burning. You know, you can check on watchtheburn.com or ethburn.info. You can check every hour how many Ethereum are burning from the protocol fees. So Ethereum is scaling. It's taking time, obviously, more time than we would love. But in my mind, I have similar ideas than Valentino. I think MetaMask has helped a lot in democratizing all the chains, because you can access with just changing the network on your MetaMask, except for some chains like Cardano, Solana, and some other chains where you need a specific wallet. But otherwise, you can have like Avalanche, Phantom, all these chains, Near, and so on. You can have them on MetaMask. So it's very easy for users to use all these chains. Now, agreed with Valentino, these chains most of the time are just not used. So when people say it's much faster than Ethereum or it's much cheaper than Ethereum, well, it's not nearly used as much, right? So I think Ethereum, personally, I think it's here to stay. It has the network effect. Clearly, it has like the smartest mind into crypto. It has a lot of protocols, you know, like Aave, Compound, which are all like considered like old timers, but actually they're very, very secured. And in crypto, you need two things to secure: audits and times, right? So you can, time is a very efficient thing for Ethereum to gain more power in this ecosystem. So I clearly think there will be more and more side chains. Like BSC has become, you know, the side chains for degens. Phantom has become the side chains for people who liked new projects, like Andre Cronje was supporting this chain at some point. So every chain is kind of focused on something. And I think there will be something for everyone, but I don't see Ethereum going away anytime soon. It has just the network effect is just too strong, I think, in my opinion.
Thank you very much. So that network effect. Now, you said that there's something for everybody. I think we need to dumb this down a little bit so that there is an understanding for everybody. Let's keep the level a little bit. Let's bring it down a little bit. Valentina, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, I mean, what's going to happen is that dApps and all that kind of infrastructure, the infrastructure pieces are going to go and they're going to build multi-chain sooner than later. So it's currently still not that easy. All you're waiting for essentially is a solution that does the interoperability from, like, let's say Solidity and Rust combined, like EVM compatibility. So you code one language and it immediately translates to all others and can be hosted on all our networks. So you will essentially, let's say, let's use Aave, for example. You will have a borrowing and lending protocol, which you can choose what network you want to interact with. Of course, at the beginning, it will have fractured liquidity, let's say, but in the future, it will also be consolidated. So at one point, you're probably going to be using whatever network let's say Avalanche is cheap and you do the transactions, but you can settle on Ether later on, or, you know, you can bridge over to Ether. So you have your core asset back there, but you're actually doing the transaction on Avalanche. So you can, you know, you can use the cheapest network. Or I mean, this is the idea behind Polkadot, right? That they have different parachains. They essentially create let's call it a standard, like a what do you call it? Like a white label solution blockchain, if you will, right? You can define the parameters and you can essentially launch your own blockchain on Polkadot. And within that ecosystem, it's completely interoperable with all other blockchains, right? So now you can, I need a fast one, or I need one with like high throughput, or right. So you can just pick the one, or you can modify the one that you need and become interoperable. And in the future, like, these solutions are being worked on and will be all interoperable. Like that's going to be the holy grail. Whoever like translates, or not holy grail, but it will be it's going to be a next big thing, is whoever figures out the core interoperability for anybody building a dApp or whatever to immediately be multi-chain, right? Because if you've got that and you've got that set prerequisite, that's right now what happens is people build a dApp on a chain and they either integrate multiple chains, right? Or somebody else copies their idea and then does it on that chain, and then they claim that domain. But that's really stupid. That really doesn't make a lot of sense, you know. So that's where I see it going. That's what's
What
going to
about
happen.
the ERC20 converter that was obviously first launched on the Cardano network?
The EVM compatibility.
Yeah, EVM compatibility. Yep, the ERC.
Yeah, it's going to be important. Yeah, I know, but it's going to be EVM compatible. You still have Rust, right? Which is like Terra Luna, Solana. What else? Near, even, I think. Like, I know actually Near is EVM. Yeah, so there's multiple blockchains that are big that they're coded on Rust language, so not Solidity, and they are not interoperable in this case, right? So you'd have like Haskell to Solidity, which is the EVM bridge, but I don't know how like straightforward it is. You probably need to integrate other oracles also, like that are chain agnostic, chain specific. So if you're, for example, getting data from, if I'm getting pricing data, so everything is data, right? So so if I'm trying to build a dApp and I'm displaying certain values, I need to call them from somewhere. Something needs to tell me this has this value. And this is what an oracle does, right? It relays that value that it has in real time. And usually unless you sync all of the nodes of different blockchains, or you can use a provider like QuickNode, then you're probably working on being multi-chain faster than syncing your own nodes and like getting the data of each specific blockchain from a different from a chain specific oracle.
So let me come back to that question that I had. I mean, so will third gen cryptos eventually replace those predecessors? The first gen Bitcoin, of course, is crypto. And then here we go, POW, and then proof of stake. I mean, are we all moving in that direction, POS?
I mean, everything is POS right now, except for, even when Ether is going to transition, it's pretty much all POS except for Bitcoin, right? So, I mean, there's like, I don't know, Zcash, I think, is still POW. I don't know. So there's some like, it's very rare that something is POW. It's more efficient than POS. That's kind of the assumption and the de facto kind of adoption of the industry.
Right. Further thoughts, Florian?
I think, James, the word replace might need changing, because what Valentino describes is they're going to work together, right? In terms of user perspective, the liquidity will be cross-chain. At some point, when it's all compatible, interoperable, you don't even know what chain you're using. You're just going to use the app. Obviously, that's going to be, like for 90% of the apps. So you will still have some very probably exclusive apps for Ethereum, for Solana, and so on. But most of the app that the main user would use will probably be completely cross-chain. It's so easy now to port cross-chain some apps and tokens. Is going to be more and more easy. And it's a bit like, I'm a gamer, so now all games are available on PlayStation, Xbox, PC, except a few games. I think it's going to be the same for dApps, right? Most dApps will be just available on every chain, and more chain as they come in. So I think that they should work together really in the background. And I guess the most tech users would really be careful. Okay, what chain am I using here for this transaction and so on? But for most users, they would just not even know that in the future.
Okay, I think. Thank you. ISPOs, Meld, first ISPO on the Cardano chain, correct? ISPOs, they've gone to fundamentally change how fundraising is being approached. What are your thoughts on ISPOs, Florian?
It's something I'm not too much into, because I don't know much about ISPOs. I've looked into it, and I know we've talked about it together, James. So it's definitely an interesting approach, I think, to raising, to distribute your tokens. Because first, you're distributing, an ISPO is some people who are blocking some of their tokens. So let's say, for instance, ADA tokens for a certain amount of time to get in exchange the token of a new project, right, as a bonus. But while they do that, they don't earn an ROI, if I understood properly, on their ADA token, right? They just block them to get back some new tokens of a new project. So it's definitely a very interesting way to distribute, because you're distributing your tokens to people who have a vested interest in the protocol, right? And you're not just distributing your tokens to anyone. So it's definitely probably a fair way, or what could seems to be fair at this point in time, a fair way to distribute your token if you compare it to ICO and IDOs. I know from having talked with a few projects who did ISPOs, apparently some users have been very annoyed at blocking out some of the ADAs for a certain amount of time with no ROI on them, and then getting tokens that are worthless. So basically they lost time, getting some returns on their tokens. So greed is still there in a way or in another. Yeah, it's a new way of doing things. It seems interesting for sure.
Can I just add to that? I mean, I think we need to correct that, because when you run an ISPO, you actually don't, you still get your ROI on your.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes, you
right.
do.
Okay.
I mean, I'll say from my experience, I have put into Bloom, one of their pools, stake pools, Bloom 4, and the ISPO was Sunday Swap. So I got my 1,000 whatever Sunday Swap, but I still, of course, got my ADA on the Bloom staking pool. ISPOs are, for me, a very interesting approach because of the no risk factor, and that's what is so ultimately attractive. Now, you can, of course, take it further, and if you decide you want to eventually not pull out or pull out, this becomes very interesting as compared to the ICO or the SDO. In other words, the initial coin offering or the secure token offerings where there is this inherent risk. Now, you mentioned the IDOs. Thoughts on this, Valentino?
There's always risk. So it just needs to be defined some way, I guess. I actually didn't hear about initial staking offerings until you mentioned it to me, because it's like Cardano native thing. So I was just looking it up and I was researching it a bit. And it sounds like it's just a staking pool where you get a fraction of the rewards based on your share, right? So I would say, is it based on your share of how much you hold on the weight?
Well, essentially it is how much you have staked within that Cardano pool. So
Right.
Meld was the first ISPO offering.
And is there a fixed amount of Cardano that can be staked?
Relative to the pool offering, yes.
Right.
Relative to whoever is running the ISPO, it's sort of like, think about the ICO. So you're allowed to come in at a particular level. There might be a minimum, of course, requirement. But the point is that you have these pools are designated by the ISPO. So only particular pools participate in the ISPO of the offering.
And is there a fixed cap on the amount that you can put in? Just a couple of questions to get an idea.
There is always a cap. There is a downside and an upside.
Okay. All right.
And again,
and then what? How do the projects get the capital then? Because you're putting Cardano in, right? And like, how do they get the Cardano that you put in, or how does that work?
Well, this is very interesting because the projects are supposed to be able to run on that stake commitment, the staking commitment. So the stake pool operator, all right, for example, Bloom is committing based on your particular investment, right, your pool. So this is where they are now then piggybacking, if you wish, on that stake pool operator.
Is that locked then? Or
this if over a particular period of time you don't claim it, it is locked. It converts over. But you
so they get the Cardano.
So the project fails, you pull out. So for the ISPO, you actually do get the reward, but you can pull out. But it is locked for that initial period.
So does it act as a liquidity pool? Is that what it is doing, or?
Absolutely.
Right. So you're putting it in, you're essentially creating a liquidity pool. Now you're just putting in Cardano, or are you putting also in a secondary token, or is it the secondary token that's the reward that acts as a?
It's Cardano.
Okay. I will look into it a bit more.
I didn't. Because I find this very interesting as a new way. Basically, it's changing how crypto fundraising is approached. I find it very, very, very interesting because, again, it's that notion of decentralization that comes into play here in terms of fundraising. Well, let's move on
It's
here.
all done on chain, right, James, for the
Sorry?
ISPs? It's all done on chain, right?
It's all done on chain.
Okay. Right,
Any
so
other
I guess,
thoughts?
yeah, zero risk, as Valentino said, zero risk doesn't
Exactly.
exist.
Well,
And you would still have smart contracts risk and probably stuff like this.
there's always a risk at some point, at some
Yeah.
level. So if I'm going to now stay in on Sunday swap, well, there goes my risk, right? There's some risk at some level, but it's much safer on the initial side.
Initial staking pool. I'm just looking it up, so I get a better idea.
Well, let's take a quick leap forward. Peer-to-peer transactions, P2P trading. Should
That's
banks
amazing.
purchase or form alliances with online lenders? What exactly is P2P trading? And where are we going with P2P trading? Any thoughts on this, Florian?
So I guess you would say that it's people, sending, receiving money or benefits like lending, borrowing without intermediary, right?
Correct.
Straight to each other's. So I'm struggling with this question because why, like most of the people who would be involved in these kind of things, maybe in some countries, might not have access to banks, might not have access to regulated entities. So I guess doing it using DeFi products, lending, borrowing, or P2P, is a way for them to access these services. So if a bank comes in and form alliances with the lenders, big troubles for me. We're removing probably 50% or so of people who are interested in this market. Banks will demand KYC. They will demand proof of address, proof of salary, maybe, all these kind of documents that makes it a centralized thing rather than the decentralized service. So clear answer for me, no, I don't think they should form alliances. I think they will though, probably with the main ones. But it's something to worry, I would say.
Well, let me put these figures forward here. The entire DeFi market, which encompasses P2P, has grown, as you know, in 2018 from 1.2 billion and has doubled every single year. It's now estimated in 2021 at 7 billion. And when it comes to P2P trading, I mean, is this not a big disruptor? So where exactly are we heading? The fin banks are of course having banks chasing their tails. What is it that banking should do? Legacy now, the legacy systems, should they start considering whether or not alliances with not only lenders, if we're talking about yield farming, if we're talking about the entire DeFi market, other than even just P2P, should banks be worried? When I say alliances, worried. That's really what I'm driving at. Where
I mean, of course they should be worried.
Going, Valentino, come on in.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. By the way, a great website for any sort of statistics on the overlook of DeFi is DeFi Llama. If you ever want to look at it, it gives you a great overview. So there's like total value locked currently right now. I'm looking at it 217 billion, right? So with a B, yeah, banks. Yeah, I mean, I built a crypto bank essentially, right? That's what I did. And like, let me tell you something, banks are extremely slow, heavily under regulatory pressure, have to adhere to all kinds of policies, licensing. It's very difficult for them to just come into the market because of the policies behind it. They don't even understand, half of them, like how to integrate this. They're like archaic systems where they're talking about, they have clearing houses, like clearing and settlement, like a totally foreign concept to blockchain because it inherently clears and settles while you do a transaction. Like that's what it is. You transfer it and then it clears and settles automatically. You don't need a clearinghouse to reconcile all of the transactions between different counterparties, right? So peer-to-peer trading is a huge thing. And I think in Nigeria, right? I was looking at the numbers. It's massive over there. it's going to be a huge thing in all these emerging economies, and just wherever you have centralized currencies or fiat currencies, if you will, that are under massive like government scrutiny, if you will, or that are just that are manipulated at will, right? So whenever you have the risk of high inflation through certain monetary policy, fiscal and monetary policy, like that is a risk. So if you can clear and settle between, P2P stands for peer-to-peer, like I am a peer and James is a peer, Florian is a peer, like we are peers, we're trading with each other, against each other. And you can have platforms exactly that are super easy. Binance has P2P, which is huge in China also. Like there you cannot trade a centralized exchange anymore. You could do P2P trading. And that's going to be a thing that just keeps going up. There's a really great entrepreneur out there. He's called Jack Mahler. He's doing Strike, and he's essentially building a Lightning network that now is integrating with all the big, like Walmart, whatever. And it's on the Lightning network. Essentially, it is kind of like a peer-to-peer transaction that uses banking rails or bridges to banking rails as well. So there was a great video, a 5-minute clip of the Miami Bitcoin conference. And let me see if I can find it and chuck it in here. And it's the best advocation of why P2P is going up. And it has to do with, just the uncertainty of some of these emerging markets and having a stable currency they can transact in. So yeah, it's a trend that's going to keep going up.
While you look for that, let me just add here, you're totally right about Nigeria. You're totally right about the developing countries in the world. What they have is a failing in legacy banking systems, or a non-functional. The money transfer organizations such as Western Union and so on have come in and have really been hemorrhaging these transactions that are being sent across by those who are in the diaspora. So we found it very interesting to use the peer-to-peer process, because not only does your money arrive very quickly within a few hours, if not less, but the cost, the fees are at a minimal, as opposed to going through the banking system, which is, or even the traditional MTOs, the money transfer organizations, that charge an arm and a leg. So the P2P is very interesting because, again, you have anybody can join this trade, this trading route, and it's a great way to earn passive income as a side hustle. So I will say that we are very active in this. We're in fact, the course that I'm delivering looks at P2P, looks at how P2P can be something that most people can engage in, Of course, there are issues. There are issues of security, although it's all based on custody. But the lower fees, the accessibility, the speed, the ease of use, the anonymity, of course, is something that we can also discuss. But the key difference between the P2P and over-the-counter exchanges is that basically the transactions that you're using, or I should say, OTCs allow users to buy and sell crypto directly with a broker, but here you're just dealing with anybody, and the custody factor is what makes it possible. So,
well, I don't think there's just to jump in here. I don't think there's big risks actually in peer-to-peer trading, especially like you have platforms that facilitate P2P trades. You say, I want to sell at this price for this amount, and somebody can just match it with a, let's say, a Bitcoin against a dollar transaction, USDT, whatever, right? Like any sort of crypto against a stable. And you can do that without running any risk whatsoever, because you're essentially matching an order that has been put up and it's peer-to-peer. It just means that you're direct, like there's usually like a multi-signature kind of mechanism in between, right? That unloads the capital. So yeah, all right. I'm not going to go super technical on it, but there's not so much risk if you're doing it in a good way. You should of course not do it in person. You
No,
know,
no,
don't send your.
absolutely.
That is not
quite a bit.
P2P, right? So like
No,
it is
no.
still, but like it's
Yeah,
not.
the beauty about the P2P is the custody factor, right? The escrow, and this is what makes everything so interesting. And the platform will only release the transaction after a delivery or acceptance, and
Yeah.
and this is what makes it possible.
That is what is you call it an escrow. It's really just a multi-signature vault, if you will, right? So you have a vault, which is pretty much all you need to think about is that there's a smart contract. It's a set of code, some numbers and whatnot, and they hold this round code. You know, that's where your money is inside. You put it inside, and then somebody else puts the other money inside, and then you have both of them, and then they release back out once they're both in. If somebody puts it in, the other person doesn't put it in, you just get it back. There's no risk, right?
Absolutely.
To make it
Yes,
super
is a
simple.
contract. Absolutely.
I
Florian.
just want to add one thing, James. I know there are plenty of options to do this. I just want to quote one that is, in my opinion, really good. If you want to do this privately, buy and sell Bitcoin, try using bisq.network, BISC. It's a decentralized peer-to-peer way of buying and selling. The nodes are made by users. Users store the nodes on different local machine. Your data stay on your machine. It never reaches a server. So that means in terms of doing this privately, it's one of the most secure way of doing it, I think. It's for Bitcoin, but BISQ is a really good way, a good decentralized way. And of course, as Valentino said, there's multi-sig, right? So you have to have both transactions done to release the funds. So it's all good.
Thank you for that. Thanks for that input. Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a smart contract. There's no question about that. And that's what the escrow aspect is. But it is really interesting. And I find that Binance jumped into this quite quickly. Local Bitcoin, very active, local cryptos, another great exchange. But it seems that there's a very, very fast proliferation. And again, I come back, should banks form alliances? Where's the banking industry stance on this? Are they perhaps, I mean, I'm trying to preempt, where are they going to be? Because I do not see myself ever going back to a bank to transfer money. I've not done this in over 6 years for the same reasons.
Once you come inside, you don't, once you go into crypto, you barely go out. The only reason you're going out is to pay your bills in fiat money. That's most of the people. You're literally like now, I mean, with monetary, like, I mean, here in Europe, let's say, I need to pay to keep my money on the bank. Like, what the,
Right.
What the heck? Why am I paying the bank to keep my money on there? It's just a number that is on the screen. Why am I paying for that? When I can go into crypto and I can farm some stables, if I really want like pretty much almost no risk, I get 2% return on my yield a year, right? But that's really low, but that's still better. They're paying me, right? You can go up to like certain stable coins like UST, which has like Anchor, and they still have, I think they have a 19% yield, which is going to drop to like 12 or something fairly soon because they can't sustain that yield. Yeah. But like there is stable yields out there that are within the 6 to 7% range. Like, so, and what's happening now is fiat is hyperinflating, or not hyper, but they are inflating massively. The dollar again, the Canadian dollar even did like 400% expansion of their balance sheet in literally 3 months when COVID started. ECB also tenfolded it in the last 14 years, the same as the Federal Reserve. I mean, that means your money, if you had $10 at 14 years ago, it's the equivalent of having like $1 now, That's how it diluted by 90%. It's ridiculous. So of course I don't want to. Why would people work and then save their money and then it just loses value? It makes no sense. It's stupid. I'm not working so that then all of a sudden all my money becomes worthless because I left it in the bank, because my government is exercising really reckless monetary and fiscal policy that impacts on all the people that makes no sense. So I might as well, keep it in a network where they cannot freeze my account, for example. I mean, we saw that now with, I mean, this is a bad example, but I think it sets a really big precedence. What happened to Russia's federal, central bank? They froze all of the assets overseas. Like, I mean, I understand why they did it, but that's a whole, like, that is a huge thing that happened there, because all of a sudden every single government out there is going to think about leaving assets overseas in case they ever go into some sort of dispute, or and some sort of if something happens, right, that they can just get everything frozen by the click of a button. So that's a risk. People are going to start factoring that risk in future risk models as the world develops and the years continue. So it will have an impact on how people think about this kind of stuff, and how big corporates think about this stuff. Like big institutions, they're going to want to have some Bitcoin exposure sooner or later. If they didn't have it yet, they're doing it right now. Trust me on that. They're getting their hands on some Bitcoin, because you cannot freeze Bitcoin. Like, it's impossible. Like, nobody can take it away from you unless you, of course, have it in a custodian. But even then, it's accessible to you. So that and what happened also, to throw that up, is that the petrodollar standard is what kept America strong all these years, and all of a sudden we're having the Saudis accepting Chinese yuan now for the petro. So which is like, that is the only reason the United States dollar has retained its power for all of these years. And now we're seeing settlement occur in different currencies. Like, that is a huge seismic shift that happened, that went pretty much under the radar for a lot of people, but it's happened now, and it's going to unfold itself over the next couple of years, if not decades. So,
which brings in a very interesting, of course, point here, which is a great segue on CBDCs, and I'm referring to permissioned, of course, the permission protocol, and the hopes, the fears, I should say, the doubts, and the trends in CBDCs. Where are we heading with this? And let's come back to the ability of government to perhaps freeze or to control assets that are in a permissioned environment, as opposed to permissionless or decentralized. So let's deconstruct this first of all for our audience. Let's try and just define what are CBDCs, what is permissioned, what is permissionless. All right, and Florian, maybe you can just take that real quick.
Yeah, so you're right, James. At the moment, it's my belief that most countries are working on their own solution, having a cryptocurrency that is controlled by the government, that is centralized, and that is also completely visible by everyone working in this. So it's very different from Bitcoin, right? Where Bitcoin is an open book. Obviously, everyone can see everything, but no one can freeze your assets. It's not possible. Whereas CBDCs, and it has happened with centralized protocols like Tether, USDT, Tether has hit the frozen button for a bit more than 100 people already, I think. So obviously, sometimes it's ethically right to do so, because it's for hackers, people who hacked millions of dollars of some in protocols. So of course, something needs to be done. It's a gray area. But at the same time, some people think it's crypto, it's decentralized. No one should be able to do that. So crypto backed by government, they will definitely be able to do that. So to be honest with me, I can't say that it's a cryptocurrency. It's just another way of having digital currency, well, that's how it's called anyway, controlled by the government, removing cash and having as much visibility as possible on the citizens using money. So it's I'm stand on my point. I said last time it's very problematic. It's going to come. It takes time, because, as Valentino said, regulation takes years before anything gets done. So it takes time. It's going to come at some point, and it's going to take the time it takes. But at some point, most people will start dropping cash using digital currencies. At least the not tech savvy one, probably, and that might be a problem. But that's what banks, as Valentino said, that's what banks do, right? Already, they can freeze your assets. you are insured, but in reality, banks can freeze your assets. So unless you have your own ledger, and I'm not even saying hot wallet because it can be hacked in a few seconds, but having your own ledger, physical wallets, and holding your currency yourselves, it's a very different way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
fears, Valentino, hopes and
yeah,
fears both
hopes, yeah. Hopes is that the governments will be responsible. Fear is that they will abuse that power, you know? So, I mean, they will have total so the thing is, like, there's CBDCs already happening, like they're already, you won't even notice as a citizen, pretty much they'll just change the backend, right? Because like let's say I live in the Netherlands, right? That is a completely cashless society. Pretty much we only use our card. Everything's already logged, you know, all my transactions, everything I do, it's already happening. So what would happen is that they would just start running some pilots, and if I have, for example, let's say an ING account, which is a bank, right, and I have my app, they will just change the backend. Like in my front end, it'll just display the same numbers. It doesn't make a difference, right? They'll just change the backend. So your actual like settlement will work on their CBDCs, but in the front, you just see your digits all the same. Nothing changes for you, right? It's all the same. So
the
transition
way of seeing things for banks,
yeah,
right? So the visibility.
So they will have huge visibility. So they will be able to do a lot of different things. Like let's say let's say something happens, or you for example, tax, right? They'd be able to like have different kind of tax oversight across different citizen brackets based on their, you know, wallet sizes and whatnot. So it's just much more agile. You have the ability to pretty much, you know, use contract logic on that as well, so to say, and the wallet. So you'll be able to just do a lot more detailed stuff with it. So right now it's just numbers in a thing, but you can't really, like, you know, you can analyze them, but it's not as sophisticated. So you have much more possibility to do a lot of more detailed things with CBDCs. Let's put it that way. At the same time, it's probably, yeah, the hopes is that, yeah, I mean, it is a faster settlement if they do it. You know, you don't have to wait for wires internationally. Probably if they do it interoperably between different CBDCs of different countries, it'll be much quicker. So then it'll just speed up everything.
And these are great marketing props for them.
Yeah. So that's, yeah.
Let me just quickly plug in there. The Kenyan Central Bank recently sent out a public notice, as most central banks do, inviting the citizens to take part in a survey. I think it's more or less just a formality that they're going through rather than anything else, in my view, in my opinion. But essentially, 68% of all central banks have, according to the Bank for International Settlements, have already considered or are in the process of investigating the adoption of CBDCs. Of course, we know some countries, Bahamas, you know, they've already gone, you know, China's yuan, digital yuan is they're way out there in terms of implementation. Now, is this therefore inevitable? What's our timeline? What are we looking at? Next 5 years? What is your prediction? Because I get the sense that we're looking at the inevitable. The back end, you said, Valentino, is just nothing more than what is already happening. Everything is digital, of course, we know that. But now, are they gonna switch to this protocol?
What's going to hold back government from doing this first are obviously, you know, the technology thing, but mostly it's going to be the people. You know, having the people on your side, it's what takes time. It's like products, right? When Apple release a new product, they do a change bit by bit. They can't change the MacBook in just one year. Changes happen over time. So having the people on your side, there's going to need some strong, I'm not saying propaganda, but marketing, some strong points put on their side. And yeah, I think it's going to take probably at least 5 years, in my opinion. I would say, at the very least, honestly.
The question I also raised is something Valentino had made reference to, which is the dollar dominance. And yes, we know the gold standard. We know, how the dollar came in, Bretton Woods, a little bit of history there. But of course, very clearly here is this shift, the shift to digitization of currencies. The only reason we have the reserve currency of the dollar is because there's not enough to go around. There's not enough euros, there's not enough yen. But boy, there is enough digital yuan, and that can make it very, very possible for this to be well, I should say, a replacement of the dollar dominance as a reserve currency. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that actually funny enough that the stable coins that are all denominated in dollars extended the dollar's life cycle. Yeah, funny enough, I think that because like otherwise, like, you can throw the dollar away, it's pretty much trash otherwise. But because now the entire crypto space is pretty much dominated by dollar stable coins, we extended the life cycle of the dollar. And if you look at the history of world reserve currencies, you will notice a pattern is that they usually only last 100 years. You had the Dutch guilder, you had the Spanish one, you had the Portuguese, I believe, as well. Then it was the pound, and then it became the dollar. And if you look at it, they all had a life cycle of about 90 to 100 years, 80 to 100, something like that. And then there was a shift occurring where, the next reserve currency essentially established itself over some sort of decade overlap. And that always usually happened because these currencies would hyperinflate or inflate massively, right? So obviously then nobody wants to hold the value there, and then another currency emerges and that becomes the world reserve currency. Now the hope is that will be something like the Bitcoin, right? But it's most likely going to be the Chinese yuan, I'm assuming, if I look at the way things are going.
A question from the audience, from Jatin. How can cryptocurrency, or how can crypto fly in those countries where cryptocurrencies are banned or discouraged? Is it possible to ban? What is, if we talk about India, for example, the flip.
You can. I think there's a huge misconception about that you cannot like ban stuff. In fact, you can. It's just a bit more unconventional. Like if I know that a huge wallet is the recipient of a big amount of Bitcoin, I can, for example, put it on a blacklist. And if there's a adherence to sanctions, right, from other countries, they are not allowed to be, interacting with that wallet because it's clearly flagged, on the blacklist. Now, you have abilities like with CoinList or whatever it was called. I don't remember all the KYC, surveillance softwares, but I think CoinList is one of them. And not CoinList, sorry, that's the other one. I forget. There's multiple ones, right? And they just pretty much make sure that they check that these wallets are, adhering to KYC, AML, or sanction laws or PEP screenings and whatnot, that they're not from terrorists. So, I mean, you could theoretically flag and blacklist wallets that are known to be from a country that, or from an individual, and then you cannot really interact with them in a legal way because they will be tainted going there. So there is ways of doing it. Then again, there's other mechanisms where you can pretty much just, whirlpool, tornado, cash, whatever, your funds, and it becomes pretty much untraceable. That's what there's a huge PSY operation going on from North Korea. They're a huge hacking organization in crypto, and they have fake development studios and everything. They're involved. The North Koreans are actually responsible for the 600 million Ronin bridge hack. So, and they're responsible for a lot of social engineering. So, the funds get washed before you can do anything, a lot of them. And
every protocol has this, right? You said Tornado Cash for Ethereum. You have Bitcoin. You can mix the coin easily. Monero, you can cross swap from Monero easily. It's just so easy, like banning a wallet for people who is a bit savvy and knows how to cross swap, how to wash. It's very, very, very easy to do. And when you trace the wallets of hackers, the first thing they do in less than a minute, they use Tornado Cash. That's it, Tornado Cash, and then funds are gone. And most of them, 90% of them, will never be found. So obviously it's not illegal to use stolen idle cash, but obviously hackers do it, and it's everything can be used. Like if you ask a Monero addict, people who hold Monero, what happens if governments ban Monero? They will tell you bullish because that's why we're here for privacy. So it just depends on the community. It's not making it easy, but it's not impossible either.
The thing is, like a lot of these hacks, they try to use centralized exchanges to bring the cash out actually to fiat. That's where they, that's usually where they get discovered. Because if you're trying to, withdraw huge amounts of money via centralized exchange, you obviously need to KYC your account. Of course, there's like fake KYCs. I heard,
right? Peer-to-peer,
yeah.
decentralized privacy. There's always a way for them. Obviously, with 100 million, you can't do it. So big hack will be found. Thank God.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a good thing about, regulations coming in a bit, because there is a lot of, really bad behavior and opportunistic, people in the space that are really just, it attracts also really bad people that just scam straight up, and there's a lot of these, what you call rug pulls. So for that reason, I am actually for some regs coming in so that people at least get KYC'd or something. So that these bad actors get weaved out, because it gives a bad experience to anybody that suffers from a rug pull or whatever. And it's very confusing space to come in at the beginning anyways, if you don't know what's going on.
So we've seen some healthy developments in terms of regulation. Last time we talked, markets and crypto assets was not out. It's in the European guidance on this. We've had some guidance. Mika. We've had some guidance from the Biden U.S. administration, the White House, looking to try and at least take a hold of further innovation. I think that was the buzzword there. But regulation is a healthy way forward. But let's quickly just jump to one other question that was posed here, and this is a time-old question that seems to come up very often in terms of quantum computers and the threats to cryptography. Go ahead, Valentino. Florian, jump in.
Oh, look, these are design systems by people. By the time that they become relevant, people will have developed an fragility mechanism against it.
My thoughts exactly.
Just one thing to add. Don't think that Bitcoin is done. No one's working on it. There are still people working on Ethereum, on Bitcoin. It's happening, right? People work on this all the time.
Precisely. All right, so let's move on here. Does anybody here own land in the metaverse? And why not? And or why?
So I own some because I invested in some projects who gave us investors as bonuses some land sales. But this is, in my opinion, a very sensitive topic, James. At the moment, basically everyone and their mom are creating a metaverse and a game and something like this. And even myself, I'm creating a game on Solana. There are some, it's not all trash or all good. You have to find the good from everywhere. But I would say that 90% of when you see land sale, it's probably complete trash. What you could try to find now is looking into the projects, try to find maybe land that give you a revenue share of this project, an NFT, backed by assets. This could be interesting. But if it's just a land or a plot of area in a game, unless it's something that has become very famous, like Sandbox and all these already big games, it's going to be hard to have any return on this. Most likely it's going to go to zero. No one will buy it from you. But again, if it's coming from a very, very famous metaverse project, it could be interesting. But I think most are gone already now.
I personally don't have any land, but I know people that do have land, and they're usually artists. They have it in Decentraland, so they built their own little plot of land, and they built their own little, tower on Blender, and they host like virtual. They built a it's called Innkeeper. Yeah, they built like a screen where they then put all the artists on top. They stream it. They have like VJs and stuff. So it's really cool. And that's I think is cool. You know, they're buying the land, they're building on it, and then they're actually doing new stuff that nobody's doing. So that's really cool. But if you just buy it to sell it, that's, I mean, you can do that. You know, you're just a landowner, but yeah, I personally don't. I'm not building, so I don't have any land.
Will this be a game changer in terms of social connections?
Sure. Yeah. That's really cool what they're doing. So, I mean, they have, I think they get like the ones I'm talking about in Keeper, they're getting like 6 to 10% of all the users on Decentraland when they're active. They have like 200 users coming to all the events on Tuesday and Thursday. And that's really cool. It's like a new kind of thing. Like it's, yeah, I mean, nobody's doing it. So it's brand new. So I think it will change some stuff. I think it's people, you know, it's really cool. So
will this be a game?
I think it will change.
Florian, for social connections?
Yeah, not much to add. Game changer, yes, it has been already, because you know metaverses and lands in metaverse are new, but metaverses have been existing since Second Life, since early MMORPGs. It's just different ways of creating a metaverse. But yes, it is a game changer because people use it, and as long as it brings social interaction, as Valentino said, you know, people can build a game inside a game. You can buy a land, create a virtual game in this land, and people can join your plot of land to play with you, the game you created. And it creates new kind of interactions. It's supposed to be working. It seems to be working. So definitely, it seems to be game changing. Yeah.
Okay, I think Valentino, you kind of touched on something that I thought did make this point relevant. I mean, Facebook, and of course we have to talk about Facebook. I mean, like it or not, they have around 3.5 billion monthly users and 3 billion very active monthly users. Now, if they're going to get into this space and bring even a fraction of this audience into Meta, this might be very interesting. Of course, Facebook was a social game changer. We cannot deny that. And other media platforms have gone down this road as well. We at the European Business University have just mapped or in the process of mapping our campus with Cornucopias, which is one of the other well-known developers in this space, for the purposes of social interaction strictly. So something to be looking out for from our.
The only thing I know about Facebook is that they're trying to take a 47.5% cut on all NFT sales on Facebook, and I was like, okay, memes, yeah. You just killed yourself. So
there you go. NFTs, and we have to watch our clock here. We're really coming down to the wind down here. Hip or hype NFTs? What are your thoughts?
Some really good use of NFTs are coming up. I just want to share one project. I'm biased because it's on Solana, but I don't own any tokens. I'm not related to them at all. It's called Steppen. You might have heard of it.
Oh, the walking.
Yeah, the walking bit. It's really fun. So what they do is,
Is it the bear?
No, you buy a shoe and then you walk outside and you get paid for walking.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And the shoe is an NFT that you own on Solana, and then you download the app. And as Valentin said, you walk outside, you run, and then you can upgrade your shoe to get more rewards, and you get rewards in tokens, right? Just by walking or running. So this is a kind of, it's been really hyped. So I don't know how it's going to play out, but it's an interesting approach to NFTs. My thought before that was I only go for NFTs with backed by value, right? So for instance, like a band giving an NFT that would give access to all their concerts for a lifetime. That has happened. So this is the kind of NFTs I was going for. But now we're seeing some very creative stuff being done with NFTs, like Steppen. You know, you buy it, walk, get tokens. This is pretty interesting. So it's called Move to Earn, right? It's a new kind of thing after play to earn and so on. Why not? So NFTs, you know, an NFT could be worth 0 or it could be the most expensive asset in the world. It all depends by what value and services it provides. But yeah, some cool stuff are happening for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you can NFTs are not just images, right? You can pretty much You can NFT a ticket. You can NFT an airplane ticket, whatever, right? Like anything. Like
Horse racing.
you can NFT anything. It's just a digital representation of something, right? So like that's what it is. And then it means it's non-fungible, which means that it's one-on-one, right? So you cannot like exchange it for anything else. So it's a unique thing. And I mean, yeah, there's so many use cases. I think people are just.
Dare we say that Cryptokitties was clearly down this road?
Yeah, it was one of the first ones, right? Like it was one of the first toying around. There's a really interesting one actually. It's Chainlink. I'll send it across in the chat as well. Chainlink just made a post about a new version, like it's the new generation NFTs, and those are like upgradable NFTs. So they you know, yeah, it's really cool. So we're just at the precipice, like at the very beginning of what NFTs are. Like this stuff is gonna totally change. I'll share the link so you can.
Called Satoshi Island that you might have heard, Valentino and James. It's basically an NFT that will give you citizenship to an island somewhere in the world, and there will ever going to be 20,000, I think, 21,000. You know, like Bitcoin supply divided by 1,000, 21,000 or by a few more. 21,000 NFT. You have this NFT and you can go to this island physically and live there, and only if you've got this NFT. You know, it's it's just a funny approach to NFTs. Now, I don't guarantee your safety if you go there, because you have all Bitcoin owners going to this island, but it's happening, yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at the chat, I just posted the thread of Chainlink where they call it dynamic NFTs, right? So you know you can like they're upgradable as time goes on. You can add, it's really cool. So that's gonna totally start changing stuff as well because they're not static. You can like upgrade NFTs and like, you know, just like a skin of a game, right? Like a vest or something, and then you put like pads on, and I don't know. There's so many use cases for this.
Very interesting. I come back to Cryptokitties because I think this is where it all starts, because they were the first ones out there in terms of being able to transact for gaming purposes. And they brought down, I believe, was it not the Ethereum network? They actually crashed it because of the amount of transactions and value and volume.
Yeah.
Cryptokitties.
I believe actually there's stuff predecessing it, and it was on Bitcoin, and I don't remember what it was called, but I believe the first Bitcoins were, the first NFTs were actually somewhere in Bitcoin, and it was like just a really basic representation of something.
Okay.
But yeah, the one that everybody knows is Cryptokitties, of course. So, yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, I know we're over our time here, and I did not want to hold out on the conversation, but I think we've really touched on everything we wanted to. I know that we have a couple of questions from the audience here, but we'll leave that be. And any final thoughts on where is the market heading? Where do you see us in 5 years? Where do you see us in 10 years from now? Give me your thoughts. Valentino, 5 years.
5 years from now?
5 and 10.
Oof! Oh my God. Yeah, up. Much larger. The trend is like clear. The Web3 is just what we call blockchain companies. It's a great meme. Web2 companies are transitioning to Web3. It's happening. More and more are coming. Everyone's going to create a business model on Web3. It's programmable money. It's programmable business models, programmable administrational processes in the back. You need less people. It costs less. You can automate it, less mistakes. So like the trend is clear. We're going to a world where there's more and more, all the companies can come into the space really. I mean, everything can be expressed in the digital layer. So I think five years from now is tremendous growth, and 10 even more. So if you ask me like the immediate future, I would say be wary for the next, couple of like 2-3 months on traditional markets. It's kind of hard to predict what's going on right now with all the sanctions and policies and, the monetary kind of tightening that they're going to do, the quantitative tightening. So I do expect personally on the short term that we might, see some lower ranges, and then we find the bottom around 30K or something, and then we go back up. That would be the worst case scenario. And 5 years from now, I mean, we're good. There's more and more. I think we can compare it to the Amazon quote from Jeff Bezos, where he saw that statistic of internet usage, and that's what made him do Amazon. We're talking about the same thing here. The trend is very clearly upwards. Look at DeFi Llama, look at it yourself, chart the total cryptocurrency market cap, and you will see a clear trend. So yeah.
Florian, your thoughts?
Almost exactly this. Actually, yes, the trend is there. Chains are congested, not just Ethereum. You can look at some of the chains like Solana. Solana is always congested. DevNet, Mainnet, Phantom has raised fees. It's happening. Like, people are using it. I'm seeing, maybe I would say that we're going to see some really interesting project finally finishing to build, because we've had this last year some really interesting stuff being created, but it's still too soon to see the end results. So I'm thinking of very strong like Play to Earn, like Star Atlas, for instance, or other games on chain. I think in the next 5 years we're going to see some actually good games, some actually fun games. Because if you ask any gamer at the moment, they all hate NFT games and GameFi. So I think all these sectors, not just game, but everything, will have some much more big scale projects finally being there and showing their product.
Let me just weigh in here. I mean, I think the key word that I like to always look at in technology is transformational impact. And I think we're 5 to 10 years away from transformational, and that's only 5 to 10 years for transformational impact. And what I mean by this is essentially change that's going to be similar to what we've witnessed with our ICT, with what Microsoft has done. That's transformational. With what Google has done, that's transformational. And I think for blockchain to become mainstream, there's going to be a number of, and I think interoperability is going to play a very big role in my view here, especially when it comes to platforms being scalable, cross-chain functionality, which is what we were touching on. I think when we get to that stage, and Web 3.0, clearly, no doubt in my mind as well, is a big part of this. But transformational impact, I believe we're still a little bit out there. But what I find very interesting is the role that the developing countries of the world might play here in this transformational impact. And I think we might see this impact taking root in the non-legacy environments or economies first. And this might be a very interesting prospect for impacting lives and for financial inclusion, social inclusion. But on that note, that's just what I think. So let's see where we land. And I hope that at the end of the day, what we have is nothing more or less, I should say, than financial inclusion. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. And
thanks, guys.
I hope to have you here for the next round at some point in the future.
Thanks everyone for, thanks James, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks for being here.
Hope you guys learned something.
Bye guys.
All the best. Thank you.
Bye.